today to have Eve Sample, who is of the Friends of the Everglades, who was one of the plaintiffs in that case, along with the Miccosukee. And so I invite Eve to come forward and give us a little update and tell us what's been going on.
By the sign that's in front of the Alligator Alcatraz sign, because on my drive out today I've been thinking about that sign and the fact that someday it will not be there. Someday this sign will be taken down, I'm certain of it. And when they do take it down, I think they should replace it with a historical marker of the fight, not just that we're waging today, but that we waged a half a century ago, standing with people of all political stripes in Florida. So our group, Friends of the Everglades, was founded by Marjorie Stoneman Douglas in 1969 to protect this very place from harmful development. As I'm sure many of you know, because you're spending your Sunday evening here, back then the fight was about a massive airport, what would have been the world's largest airport. And that airport was halted because people who stood up for the environment stood up with people fighting for other reasons. People living in the community, the indigenous communities here, the Miccosukee tribe was instrumental in that battle too. And we won that battle, and it wasn't just about halting the airport. From that battle, an environmental enlightenment really occurred back then. So the National Environmental Policy Act was born in 1970. That is the law we're suing under today to halt this harmful action, this detention center. The Clean Water Act was enacted. The Environmental Protection Agency was created. This fabric of environmental protection was stitched together back then in the late 60s and early 70s. And what we're finding now is that we're at this moment of potential unraveling. I have been saying that the threads are being tugged at, but I think we're past that now. The seams are stretched, some of them are torn, and the question is really, will the fabric hold? And I want to offer a message of hope today, because I think it can. I think we can. Our case is a real test of whether the fabric can hold, and there's reason for hope, notwithstanding the Thursday action by the court. So let me tell you a little bit about that. First, I want to make sure to thank Betty for inviting me here today, and also inviting me and others to join back on June 22nd, the first day that I personally gathered here in opposition to this harmful detention camp in the Everglades, the heart of the Everglades. That day, June 22nd, we stood with so many people of diverse backgrounds, just like we did in the 60s and 70s in this country. And I know that there's strength in our numbers again, and we can prevail again. So let me update you on the status of our case. 5 days after that gathering here on Tamiami Trail, June 27th, Friends of the Everglades and our co-plaintiffs, the Center for Biological Diversity, filed suit. We sued under the National Environmental Policy Act because the state and federal government failed to comply with it. They failed to look before they leapt. They built this detention center without looking at less harmful alternatives. They didn't do an environmental analysis. They didn't take any input from the public. And all of those things are required under the federal law that was born out of this battle here in 1969. So we have a very clear case. The facts are on our side, and during 4 days of hearings in federal court in Miami in August, we presented evidence. We called 7 witnesses. Some of that evidence was photos taken by people including Betty of the light pollution that we can now see right here, where we once had some of the most incredible dark skies in the southeastern United States. Other documentation of 20 acres of new asphalt at this facility. Do not buy the government's argument that this was built on an existing footprint. There has been damaging expansion into the Everglades since construction started. So we brought that evidence forth during 4 days of hearings, and we did have an initial win, 2 wins actually, and that's reason for hope. So the first win was a temporary restraining order that Judge Williams granted on August 7th that immediately halted new construction at the site. 2 weeks later, on August 21st, she granted a preliminary injunction that kept the construction halted, and also, as of that order, did not allow any new detainees to come to the site, and as I'm sure you know, within 60 days, demanded that the site be dismantled. So we were very heartened by that. Her 82-page ruling went into great detail about why that was required under the law. And then last Thursday, we hit a bump in the road, but we knew we would, right? We knew this battle wouldn't be easy. And at the appeals court in Atlanta, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, a panel of 3 judges in a 2-1 vote granted a stay of that preliminary injunction. So that's a temporary pause. That is not permanently undoing the injunction. So as we sit today, that pause lifts the injunction that halted the arrival of new detainees. So let's all keep watching and stay vigilant to see what happens out here in the meantime. So what comes next? So the appeal is still pending. The state and federal defendants have appealed while this pause is in effect of the injunction. We are bringing the full force of our co-plaintiffs, our legal team, to fight that appeal. So Friends of the Everglades, Center for Biological Diversity, and the Miccosukee Tribe will be fighting that appeal at the same court in Atlanta, but we get a panel of 3 new judges. That's an important fact to remember as this appeal is pending in the weeks and months to come. And we'll do our very best to expedite it, and we're working through the details and legal decisions of that right now. I want to make sure that we honor some of the heroes that are working behind the scenes in this battle. Our 2 attorneys at Coffee Burlington, Scott Hyacin, who happens to be Carl Hyacin's son, and Paul Schwepp, are incredible heroes. At Earth Justice, our co-counsel, Tanya Galoni and Dominique Burkhardt, are doing incredible work. And so many people are traveling in their lanes and doing what they do best. And I think that can be said for all of you here today. And I want to express my personal thanks to you for showing up today. If we are successful in the appeal, then the preliminary injunction will be restored, and we'll go back to that status we had between August 7th and August 21st. And then we have the whole broader trial ahead of us on the permanent injunction so that NEPA can be complied with. A couple other things to take note of. As you all know, this is an incredible place for endangered species, and we did file a notice of intent to sue under the Endangered Species Act, as well as the Clean Water Act, and a 3rd law called the National Parks Organic Act. With those laws, you have to give the government notice that you're going to sue, and we are also looking at all of those options to make sure that, again, we're bringing the full force of our team's expertise and the community's will to this battle. So in closing, I just want to say that I've gotten so much hope from reflecting back on that battle in 1969, 1970, and the remarkable people who fought then, whose footsteps we get to walk in now. And I especially think about Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, who was not only an environmental advocate, she was a crusader for equal rights, for racial equality, she was a suffragist. She recognized the humanity that Betty speaks so powerfully about, and our connection to nature being instrumental to that humanity. So I'll leave you with my favorite quote from Marjorie, because I think in this moment where we might be tempted to be downtrodden, it might lift us up a bit. Marjorie said, "Be a nuisance where it counts. Do your part to stimulate the public to be informed and join your action. Be depressed, be discouraged at the disheartening effects of greed and bad politics, but never give up." So never give up, and thank you all for being here.
Before you go, I have a question. Because I know with the appeal, different organizations did file something in court in support of on the stance of Friends of the Everglades Center for Biological Diversity and the tribe. And what, as these faith-based organizations, are they able to do that as well, if they so choose? So what could they do?
Yes, there was an amicus brief filed just a week ago, Wednesday, I think it was, Tuesday, I stand corrected, by some environmental groups. And if any of you are interested in an amicus partnership, friend of the court is also what it's known as, please reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with the person who's leading the conservation amicus. There may be another leader for faith-based groups that want to file amicus briefs, but I think that's an important option to consider. We need